What is up, bros and broettes? I am Inkslasher, and welcome to Evolution, the series where we look at the history of Call of Duty, and today we are looking at the history of Create a Class, something that is iconic in Call of Duty, and one of the things that's made Call of Duty as popular as it is today. So out of all of the videos I actually put together, these ones are the ones that actually take the longest. I have to go through every Call of Duty game, kind of figure out, do my research, so if you guys enjoy these videos and want to see more of them, the way to show me is by hitting that like button. Let's say if this video gets over 2,000 likes, we'll continue doing the series because it shows me that you guys are enjoying it. And as far as the future of this series, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below what you would like to see in this series, whether it be a weapon, an attachment, a different game mode. Let me know down in the comments. But as far as Create a Class goes, it was really the first form of customization ever put into a Call of Duty game. It was directly linked with your level, and based on your level, you could unlock certain items to completely change the way you played the game. And in doing so, you could create a class that really complemented your gameplay. The thing is, Create a Class wasn't always in Call of Duty. It was actually implemented in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and ever since then has been a staple in Call of Duty's gameplay. As far as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare went, it was the simplest type of Create a Class we have ever seen. As far as primary weapons go, there were 5 types of primary weapons: Assault, SMG, light machine guns, shotguns, and sniper rifles. In total, there was 22 weapons you could possibly use, most of which were assault rifles and SMGs. As far as secondary weapons went, there were a total of 4 secondary weapons. They weren't rocket launchers or melee weapons, they were 4 pistols: the M9, the USP, the 1911, and the Desert Eagle. As far as grenades went, you automatically started with a frag grenade. The only choice you had is what type of special grenade you want to use, whether it was a flash, stun, or smoke. As far as perks go in this game, they were a little bit different. Your first tier perk was all about explosives. You could choose to have C4 or RPG, or even 3 frag grenades, but you could also choose between Bandolier and Bomb Squad. Bandolier gave you more ammunition, and Bomb Squad made you able to see enemy explosives, whether that be a C4 or a Claymore. As far as perk 2 and 3, these were the perks that actually improved your soldier. The most notable perk 2s were Stopping Power and Juggernaut. Stopping Power giving you more damage, and Juggernaut giving you more health. As far as perk 3 went, there was a lot of really great perks, ranging from Extreme Conditioning, which made you able to run longer, or Steady Aim or Deep Impact, which made it more easy to shoot through surfaces. As far as attachments goes, for every single weapon you use, you can choose 1 attachment. You can't choose 5, you can't choose 2, simply 1. This is the exact same for any sidearm. If you're using any pistol, you can attach any attachment on that pistol as well. That being said, pistols in this game didn't really have many attachments. Then came along Call of Duty World at War, and more or less the Create a Class system was exactly the same as Call of Duty 4. As far as primary weapons went, you once again had a choice of 22 different primary weapons in 5 different classes. Those classes were bolt-action rifles, which are your sniper rifles. You had regular rifles, which mainly consisted of semi-automatic assault rifles, but you also had the STG-44 in there, submachine guns, shotguns, and finally the largest class, oddly, was machine guns, aka LMGs. As far as sidearms went, you had a choice of 5 different sidearms, which were all pistols. One of the changes they made, however, was that you had a choice of what type of primary grenade you wanted to use, and the 3 choices were a frag grenade, a sticky, and a Molotov cocktail. As far as special grenades went, you had smoke, Tauben gas, which was basically a type of gas that would poison the enemy, and a signal flare, which was essentially a flash grenade that didn't work whatsoever. As far as your perks went, once again, your first tier perks were basically revolving around explosives. You once again had Bandolier, and finally an M2 flamethrower, which allowed you to carry around a flamethrower with you, which sounds overpowered, but really it wasn't that good of a weapon. As far as your second tier perks, you had once again Stopping Power and Juggernaut, which pretty much reigned supreme as perk 2s, but another couple perks that people used were Camouflage and Double Tap, which increased your rate of fire, but there was also Shades, which was the most useless perk I have ever seen in a Call of Duty game. It reduces the intensity of signal flares, but like I said, signal flares already sucked. And as far as perk 3 went, once again, it was pretty much the same as Call of Duty 4. You had your Deep Impact, Extreme Conditioning, Steady Aim, pretty much the staples, and some other perks in there as well, one of which a lot of people used, was Dead Silence. The last new thing that they added into this game was vehicle perks, which basically added a perk to your tank that you could use in game. Some of these decreased the turret overheat time, and others increased the top speed of the tank itself. As far as attachments went, you could choose one attachment for your primary weapon. As far as your sidearm or pistol went, there were no attachment whatsoever for pistols. The only other difference as far as attachments went is for bolt action rifles in this game. As far as bolt action rifles went, you could actually choose to go with no attachment at all and have no scope at all on your sniper rifle, which a lot of people actually really enjoyed. Then came along Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and this game has some of the biggest changes to create a class ever in Call of Duty. First of all, this was the first game where you had the option to earn extra creative class slots up to 10. But then when we actually hop into the creative class, the first thing you're going to notice is the primaries are a little bit different in this game. So the reason I say the primary weapons are a little bit different in this game is, first of all, we've got our assault rifles, we've got submachine guns, light machine guns, and sniper rifles, but the thing that's missing that was in the other Call of Duty games was shotguns. Shotguns is replaced by the riot shield, something that was brand new to Modern Warfare 2. However, when we go over to secondaries, this is where we see the really large difference. We have a lot more choices in secondaries. We got machine pistols, which were new to this game, shotguns, which were normally primary weapons in other Call of Duty games, handguns, which were your normal pistols, and finally launchers, which were basically rocket launchers. In the older Call of Duty games like World at War and Call of Duty Modern Warfare, these were actually perk 1s. They weren't even weapons in themselves. The next thing that they changed were primary grenades were no longer called primary grenades, they were called equipment, which consisted of many different things, but the reason why they called it equipment is you had other things like throwing knives and tactical insertions, which proved to be really annoying in this game, and finally special grenades, which were pretty much the exact same as other Call of Duty games. You had flash, stun, and smoke grenade. As far as perks went, this is one of the things that drastically changed in Modern Warfare 2. First of all, there was less selection. As you can see in perk 1 here, we have a total of 5 different perks, which meant there's a lot less useless perks, which made create a class a little bit more interesting. Also, in your perk 1 here, you may notice that there's nothing to do with explosives like there were in the older Call of Duty games. Now, another thing you're going to notice is that there were actual pro perks. So the pro perks added a little something extra. So for example, Marathon Pro here. Regular Marathon, you have unlimited sprinting. Marathon Pro, you have climb obstacles faster. So it just added a little bit extra to those perks. These perks were actually unlocked. You had to put in the work and actually unlock the pro version of these perks. As far as your perk 2 went, once again, you still had stopping power. However, in this game, they removed Juggernaut. As far as your perk 3, once again, very similar to the other Call of Duty games, you had your Commando Pro, which proved to be really annoying, but you also had your Steady Aim and your Ninja, which was basically dead silence. And one thing that they added into this game that proved to be very annoying was Death Streak. So after you died a set amount of times, for example, Copycat here was 4 deaths, you would then receive this perk. The most annoying of which was Painkiller. After only 3 deaths, you would all of a sudden have this massive health boost for the beginning of your spawn time. The idea of this was to make it harder for the enemies to spawn trap you, but in reality, people just got really pissed off by it. And finally, you got attachments. As far as attachments go in this game, for every single one of your weapons, you are able to choose one attachment. On top of that, for your secondary weapons, once again, you are able to choose one attachment. One thing you're going to notice in this game is that there are also a lot more attachments. One of the most iconic in this game was Akimbo, which was added to a Call of Duty game for the very first time in Modern Warfare 2. In Black Ops 1, once again, they changed a lot. The main thing that they changed was Call of Duty points. Yes, you didn't hear me wrong, Call of Duty points, but you'll understand what I mean by that in a second. As far as primary weapons went, once again, they were more or less the same. You had your 5 different classes, which were SMGs, assault rifles, shotguns, light machine guns, and sniper rifles. As you may notice, shotguns were once again a primary weapon. As far as choosing attachments on these weapons, you could choose one per weapon. Similarly, with secondary weapons, again, you could choose one attachment. As you can see here, Akimbo was called dual wield in this game, and it was more or less exactly the same. The one noticeable thing with secondary weapons in this game is you got pistols, launchers, and specials. Specials were ballistic knife and crossbow. If you look at your launchers, they are basically rocket launchers. As far as other things in this game that changed, you may notice that there is 3 different types of grenades per class. You got your lethal, tactical, and finally equipment. As far as your lethal goes, you once again have Frag, Semtex, and this time Tomahawk. As far as tactical goes, you got your Willy Pete, Nova Gas, Flashbang, Concussion, and a Decoy Grenade, which basically showed a red dot on your radar. And finally, equipment, which had some pretty interesting things in this game, including a camera spike, which allowed you to watch certain parts of the map, or even something as far as a motion sensor, which gave you your own mini UAV. As far as perks go, they are very similar to what we've seen before in the past. The most prevalent perk in Black Ops 1 was Ghost, which used to compete with Stopping Power in the perk 2 slot, and since it didn't in this game, a lot of people used it and you just wouldn't show up on your UAV. Speaking of Stopping Power, it is not in this game. This was the first game to remove Stopping Power, and it hasn't been in Call of Duty ever since. It used to be a perk 2 perk, and as you can see right here, it's no longer in this game. And finally, we got our perk 3 perks here, which are pretty similar to what we've seen before in the game. The other notable thing I wanted to mention is the Call of Duty points. So as you can see, if I go to my primary weapon here, and let's say we just choose an assault rifle. First of all, you have to buy the weapons themselves. Even though you still unlock them by leveling up, you then have to go and buy them with Call of Duty points. So if I buy the FAMAS here, as far as attachments go, once again, you have to purchase all of the attachments on top of the weapon. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, with each weapon, you can use one individual attachment. In Modern Warfare 3, really not too much change. However, one thing that changed pretty drastically is how primary weapons work. So when we go to our primary weapons, once again, we have assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, sniper rifles, shotguns, which you will notice are no longer a secondary weapon, and finally, riot shields. But when we go to select our weapon, the first thing you're going to notice is that there are now weapon proficiencies. And if we look over to the right here, above the weapon, you will see a weapon level. You unlocked proficiencies and attachments as you leveled up your weapon. So as you can see here, some of the proficiencies we have are kick and range. You may notice that these are now in Call of Duty attachments. For example, kick would now be a foregrip. But another option we had is having 2 attachments. So as you can see, we can choose rapid fire and let's say a silencer on this weapon, something we really haven't seen before in Call of Duty. This was only for primary weapons. As far as secondary weapons went, yes, you could level them up, but if we go and select, let's say, a machine pistol here, there is no weapon proficiencies, there is just attachments. However, the options we did have for secondary weapons were machine pistols, handguns, and launchers, things we've definitely seen before in Call of Duty games. As far as your lethal and tacticals went, very similar to what we've seen before. As far as lethals go, you have your frag grenades, semtex, the things that we normally see in Call of Duty games, and tacticals, once again, pretty similar. A couple of notable mentions are your tactical insertions, portable radar, and trophy systems, which we, once again, have seen before in Call of Duty game. As far as perks went in this game, they're very similar to what we've seen before. Your first perks were, generally speaking, the first perks that they were in other games, but the noticeable thing about perks in this game is the pro perks were really, really strong. For example, if we look at Assassin here, Assassin, normally you're undetectable by UAV, portable radars, thermal, and heartbeat sensors. But if you have Assassin Pro, you are also immune to counter UAVs, EMPs, and your name doesn't show up when people aim down sights, which is incredibly overpowered. This is similar with many perks in this game, and as we can see, we got perks 3 here. Marksman, which makes it so you can identify enemies at longer ranges, which turned out to be a pretty good perk in this game as well. Moving forward, one thing that they changed was strike packages. Strike packages you could now relate to your class. So for example, there was 3 different types of strike packages. We're going to talk about this in more depth in a future video, but you had your assault, support, and finally specialist. This you could change based on every single class. So for each class, you could have a different run of kill streaks. And finally, we had death streaks. Once again, they still had not gotten rid of them at this point, but death streaks. So as you can see, one of them that many people find very annoying is final stand, because of course, you'd be laying on the ground after you got killed. But yes, at this point, they still have not got rid of death streaks. And then came Black Ops 2, and Black Ops 2 completely revolutionized the way we see create a class. No longer was it the way we've seen in the past, it was now something called the Pick 10 system. And basically, this Pick 10 system made it so that you had 10 slots you could possibly fill, and you could pretty much do whatever you wanted with these slots. You could use no attachments and no secondary, but have a lot of perks, or you could have no perks whatsoever and have a lot of attachments. As we can see here, pretty much everything else is pretty similar. As far as weapons, you got assault rifles, shotguns, light machine guns, sniper rifles, and finally your specials, which is your assault shield in this game. Now, the interesting thing about this game is that once again, you had unlock tokens, similar to the Call of Duty points that you had in other games, but with these unlock tokens, you could unlock certain things, whether they be weapons or perks. So for example, if we go and look at my first perk, I don't have Blind Eye unlocked, but I have other things like Ghost and Hardline unlocked. As far as other changes to this create a class system, there is now these things called wildcards. So for example, the one you can see me using here is this wildcards was take a third attachment for your primary weapon. Others were using a second perk in a certain class. For example, this one is a second perk, or even a third perk. And other things is you could use extra grenades or tactical equipment. The rest of what you see in the game is pretty similar. As far as secondaries go, you got your pistols, launchers, and specials, which were your crossbow and ballistic knife. And as far as perks go, they're pretty much identical to what we've seen before in Call of Duty games. The thing that changed in Black Ops 2 was the way you create your class. It was now the Pick 10 system. And the only other thing that really changed in this game is that there was no longer pro perks. Pro perks were removed and never actually returned to a Call of Duty game since. And then there was Call of Duty Ghost. Call of Duty Ghost by far has the weirdest create a class system we have ever seen. First of all, as you may notice, there is no option for create a class. You have to go to create a soldier, pick a soldier, which is the way you prestige in this game, and then you can create a class. If we then go and look at how this class actually works, it's very, very odd. So as we can see here, as far as primary weapons go, you got your assault rifles, SMGs, LMGs, then marksman rifles, which were essentially sniper rifles that you couldn't get a one-bullet kill with. Then you had your sniper rifle, shotgun, riot shield. As far as picking a weapon, once you did so, that you can then choose attachments, which there was 3 to 4 different tiers of attachments. You had your sights, barrel, underbarrel, which only certain weapons had, and then finally the mod. As far as secondary weapons went, you had your handguns and launchers. So for example, I could choose a P226 here. Then your lethals and tacticals actually made pretty much sense. They're pretty much what we've seen in other Call of Duty games. But then the thing that really didn't make sense in this game, and the reason why I'm not going into too much depth about this create a class, is the perk system. The perk system was just straight up weird in this game. So no longer was a first tier, second tier, and third tier perk where you could choose one of each. It was really weird. Each perk was worth a certain amount of points, and you had a certain amount of points to spend on a class. So for example, right here we got agility, which is increased movement speed, basically lightweight from other Call of Duty games. This was worth 2 slots. So I could use this. I could use another one, let's say Stalker, move faster while aiming, which is basically what a stock attachment does now. And then I could choose another, let's say Quick Draw, which was another 3-tier perk. And all of a sudden, all of my perk slots were filled. Or what I could do is take all of those off, and then just choose all 1-tier perks. Just a ton of them. And this was alright. This was alright to me, but then the problem came in where I could take off a tactical, take off a lethal, and take off a secondary, and all of a sudden have 3 extra perk slots to choose from. A lot of people really didn't like this. There was too many choices, and it just seemed kind of clusterfucky, if that's a good word to describe it. The other thing with these create a class system is you also had these strike packages, which you could choose per class. There is once again 3 strike packages: assault, support, and specialist, and you could change this and make it different for every single different class. As far as this create a class system went, it seemed like a lot of people didn't like it, and they just wanted the game to go back to where you had a first tier perk, second tier, and third tier, like every Call of Duty other than this. So when Call of Duty Advanced Warfare came along and changed Call of Duty Ghost create a class system completely, people were actually pretty happy. What the system was in this game was called the Pick 13 system. And as you can see up at the top there, we have a total of 13 slots we can fill, and we can kind of fill them whatever way we want. We can use a ton of attachments with a ton of different guns, or you can choose a bunch of different perks, or in this game, the difference in this game is you could choose to have no score streaks whatsoever, or have 4 score streaks by using a wildcard attachment and making it so you can use 4 kill streaks. The problem with this was that you could remove all of your kill streaks and have a really beefy class with a good gun, with a bunch of attachments, with, on top of that, a bunch of different perks. And a lot of people didn't like that you could completely remove score streaks and have a really beefy class like that. Similarly, like I said, you could choose to have 4 score streaks and pretty much build a class in whatever way you wanted. This is the only Call of Duty game to have the pick 13 system. Another thing that I should probably mention about this create a class system is there was also weapon variants, something we've never seen in Call of Duty before, in which every single weapon you could choose a different variant of that weapon to use instead. And then came along Black Ops 3, and essentially in Black Ops 3, it is the exact same create a class system as in Black Ops 2. Once again, it adapted the pick 10 system. There was only really 2 differences in this game, the first of which was the vast amount of melee weapons that you could use as a secondary weapon. The second thing that changed is what you could do is remove everything from a class and just build a class completely based around one weapon, literally putting every single attachment known to man on one weapon. Now, the reason why they did this is because they also implemented a feature called Gunsmith, and Gunsmith was essentially a way to create your own weapon variants by simply adding a bunch of attachments to it, making your weapon look exactly the way you want to. Another thing they added is a way to personalize every single attachment, changing the way they look. But as far as Black Ops 3 goes, there's really not that much else for me to say, as pretty much everything in this create a class system was almost identical to the way it was in Black Ops 2. And finally, we have Infinite Warfare, a game I'm really not going to talk that much about, simply because it's the exact same thing as Black Ops 3, the exact same pick 10 system. The only one thing that is different is in this game, see how we can throw on the same amount of attachments we could in Black Ops 3? The difference is, in this game, there is no such thing as wildcards. What you'll notice here is that the suppressor here, instead of having a wildcard, simply takes up 2 slots of your pick 10 system. Similarly, if you use Overkill, you simply press this button, and instead of using a wild card, it takes up a slot, and then you can use a primary as your secondary. I actually like this system of not having wild cards. It makes it a little bit more interesting. On top of that, the only other thing that's different in Infinite Warfare is the combat rig system. It's exactly the same as the specialist system in Black Ops 3. The only difference is each character has their own trait, which is essentially a perk. For example, propulsion here has improved thrusters allow energy to recover faster and also damage enemy players below you. This is a perk, essentially, but it's used in the sense of a specialist character. But guys, that is pretty much it. That is create a class in every single Call of Duty game. But I want to hear what you guys think. What Call of Duty game has your favorite create a class system? And also, if you have any ideas for future Evolution videos, feel free to let me know down in the comments. I know this one was a long one. It took me a while to get through everything, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, it would be fantastic if you could hit that like button. And like I said, if this video gets over 2,000 likes, I'll be sure to continue this series. Also, if you're new to the channel and like what you see here, be sure to hit that subscribe button as I upload new Call of Duty videos every single day of the week, and that's the best way to stay up to date on my channel. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, guys, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard.